All right, injuries for the game. Spencer Burford will be out. Greenlaw will be out. Aaron Banks out. Robert Beal out. Jair Brown questionable. Colton McKivitz questionable. Tatum Bethune questionable. Charvarius Ward questionable. Go ahead.
Charvarius Ward, personal.
Yes.
Any good news?
Yeah. Stuff I can't totally share. I haven't talked to him about it, so we'll keep it personal. But nothing bad happened.
Do you expect Banks and Greenlaw to be on IR before the game starts?
Banks will. Yeah.
What's the biggest challenge the Lions pose to your team?
About their team?
What's the biggest challenge they pose?
Oh, gotcha. Just how good they are in all phases. Their offense, everyone's well aware of how good they've been these last couple of years. Anytime you have an O-line as good as them, the running back as good as them, you can control the ball, which takes a lot of pressure off the quarterback and pass protections. And then when you have a quarterback as good as him, with how accurate he is with that O-line and those receivers, I mean, they're pretty lethal there. And then the defense, I know they battled through a lot of injuries, but their secondary is as good as theirs. They've been able to stay healthy there. They've lost one big one, but they have some depth there. And what they can create with their pressures and things like that, because of their man coverage, makes them very tough to be consistent with. They put a lot of pressure on you where they know how to stop the run with their scheme. And then you're never going to get really many freebies. You got to beat man coverage, you got to beat pressures, which is going to always be hit or miss. But when you do that with an offense that's so automatic, it puts pressure on both sides of the ball to not let them lap you. So you got to be consistent, got to get turnovers.
Is there anything you can point to for the dearth of takeaways over the last several games?
Yeah, I mean, usually when you're flying around, you're eventually going to get some more takeaways than we have. I think one thing that's been bad is we've dropped some that have been given to us, so we've missed a couple opportunities. In games when you don't stop the run very well and you don't make guys throw the ball a lot, 80% of the turnovers in this league come on pass plays. So you need to stop the run and get guys to throw the ball a lot more, and then you'll get more opportunities at that. And so I think when we have had our opportunities, we've missed them. And anytime teams can stay balanced versus us, you're going to get less of those opportunities.
Grindo's not on the injury report. How did he kind of get through the weekend? What is he ready for?
Yeah, it was good to have him back. We had a full speed practice yesterday, and he looked good. So no holdbacks. He's good to go.
What's your biggest challenge with putting together this offensive line with all the new pieces in there?
Just that, having three guys up who were on other teams' practice squads last week. The continuity is obviously not there, and just them not being in the building with verbiage and things like that is a big challenge. They've done a good job of working, getting in here the day before Christmas, working on Christmas, trying to catch up and do that stuff, and they've had a solid week of practice, so still got more time to the game, and those guys will be working as much mentally to get ready, but anytime you're new and you haven't been out there much, it's always a challenge.
What's your biggest turnover in offensive line that you've dealt with in your coaching career?
Probably, biggest one I can remember.
Did that fall on Jake or Brock to kind of help these guys line up, I guess, in the midst of the game rather than?
The good thing is if O-linemen mess up lining up, then we have issues because they don't move, at least till the snap starts, But no, that's helping communicate's a big deal, but sometimes you communicate and that language doesn't always come right away. So you try to keep it simple for them, try to categorize stuff in groups, and the guys next to them they try to communicate as much as possible, and you try to help them out.
Charlie Heck, having worked with Bobby Slug, does that help you a bit?
Who's that?
Charlie Heck working with Bobby Slug, does that help you a bit?
Yeah, he has the most familiarity with some terminology. So anytime there's some crossover, different O-line coaches, you go different places, you change your words and stuff, but a lot, when it comes from the same foundation, you have some familiarity, and so it's not completely starting a new language, so that always helps.
What's your assessment of Ben Johnson as an offensive coordinator?
I don't know him, but, I've really respected what he's done here the last few years. I know people who've worked with him. I know Chris, Fleury, those guys worked with him down in Miami. Talk about him as a dude, which seems like an awesome guy. But I really love how he's ran the ball and the stuff he's done off of it, and really taken advantage of his personnel really well.
When you were watching replays of the NFC Championship game this week, were there feel-good vibes or were there mixed feelings that you wish you had those players available this week?
No, it was when you watch a game like that, I mean, it was feel-good vibes to a degree. You watch the first half and you get frustrated, but you know how it's going to end, so you don't get too frustrated. So there's good things to coach off of. I mean, you can see some mistakes, big mistakes there in the first half, and it's cool to show guys overcome them and how you do it. So there's a lot of really good drives in that game. There were some big plays in the game, but just kind of the toughness that we played with in the second half, really showing guys truly what it takes to win. When it's not just a guy making there were some really unbelievable plays like BA on the tip down the field and stuff like that. But besides that, some big scrambles by Brock. But it was some real hard-nosed football that got us back in that game and doing it the old-fashioned way. And it's cool to watch that. We watched a lot of it yesterday, just talking about run game and things like that.
So we've seen BA around here a little bit. How's he doing? Everything on progress?
Yeah, he's plugging along with that. The rehab guys I don't see too much of. They come in early in the morning, and they're usually out of here before we get off the practice field. But he went to L.A. for his surgery, did the rehab there for a while, but he's been back here like the last month or so. Going through his process, working hard. It's a long process, but he's on track.
You talked a lot about what a good year Kittle has had, but in a year like this, and you have so many young guys playing, how important is it to have someone who is kind of consistently maintaining the standard to show those guys what it looks like, even if the season isn't where you want it to be?
I think it's always important. I mean, you don't just say a standard. It takes a while to be that standard, and that's from work we've put in here over the years and having the right guys who have done that, and guys who have battled throughout this year. They get to see every day, especially when you go through a long season like this, seeing guys like Kittle, Fred, Bosa getting back, and Debo, like those guys working through all this, still practicing hard and doing everything they can. That's extremely important. Guys, all you are is your life experiences, and this is a lot of people's first year, and you need to see things done the right way no matter how your season's going.
Jared Goff improved since his days with the Rams, or is he the same quarterback in a good situation?
I mean, I think it's hard for any quarterback to be successful if they're not in a good situation. But I think Goff was unbelievable with the Rams. I think he was their Super Bowl year. I thought he was a borderline MVP player. I know not every year was like that for him. Just statistically and stuff. I think the following years weren't quite as good. But when his team's real good around him, he's as good as any quarterback in this league. So, he was a real hard guy to beat in L.A., and the way he's been playing with Detroit, I almost want to say better, but that's how good he was earlier too. So it was a hell of a rebound for him, and I'm happy to see him doing it.
Ricky Watters didn't make the cut to 15 to the Hall of Fame. You were around the team in '94. What do you remember about him specifically, about what impressed you about him and that sort of thing?
How good he was out of the backfield in the pass game. I mean, I was only in middle school, so I can't act like I really knew strategically what was going on, but he was a really cool player. I loved talking to him and hanging out with him up in Rockland at training camp. I think when I got here, he hadn't played yet, so I didn't know who he was. Just I only knew guys who had played and stuff as a sixth grader. But I remember always asking, who the hell is this guy? He's cool, and he seems really good on the practice field. And then he became the starter that year and had a hell of a year and ended up having a hell of a career.
I realize the season's not done, but your overall assessment of Nick Sorensen, obviously there have been challenges with his personnel, what he has to work with, but just kind of his first year, how do you think he's fared?
I mean, no different than how I've answered that last few weeks. I think Nick has done a good job as a coach. No one's happy with our results by any means. I think he's been thrown in a number of situations that I think will make him better going forward. I've watched him adjust to a bunch of different situations, kind of be in a couple of situations on a couple games when there wasn't much of an answer, and he still had to try to find one. So I think this year was good for him, but and I know he's going to be a good coach and better for it going forward.
The Lions, they've had 19 guys on the injured reserve, similar to like the injury level here. How have they been able to kind of stay up to the standards of winning games?
I mean, just me going off these 5 days of watching them, I knew all the injuries. You see it on the reports, and especially losing their pass rushers and their D linemen. But I think the biggest thing is, it's hit them the most in certain areas on defense. But when you play as much man coverage as they do and blitz as much, that's going to be predicated on your secondary. And I think they improved that a ton this year with their draft picks, with some free agents they brought in, even their draft picks from 2 years ago. Their safety getting healthy also. So the areas that they excel in, they've been able to maintain the top of their talent there. And it does give them some weaknesses other places, but that combined with their offensive horsepower and things like that, it's Made a lot of teams hard to expose. It's made it hard for a lot of teams to expose it, and they've done a hell of a job with it. So huge credit to them for it. All right, guys.